Okay, welcome everyone. Glad you can attend today's session. Today's session is an industry fireside chat on self-driving vehicles, process, solution, and industry trends. My name is Akshay Sharma. I'm the new CTO of Kovair Software, and I'm glad you can attend. What I'll do today is I'll present the speakers and a bit about their bio. I'll talk about what is trending in the automotive sector. We know self-driving vehicles is a hot topic, but we also know a lot of this is going to be software-based with software controls. And so we're going to discuss what kind of solutions are needed, what kind of software tools will help that can address the transformation challenges that we have. And then we will end it with a demo. We will actually show real-life solutions from Kovair and our German partner, Deutsche Mittelstand, and we'll talk about what can be done next and the implication for leaders in this space. So first off, as I mentioned, my name is Akshay Sharma, and I was recently announced as CTO of Kovair Software in February. I'll also introduce Thomas Ahrens of Deutsche Mittelstand, who's our German partner and has done extensive work in the area of aerospace, medical, automotive, and industrial verticals. And then I'll also introduce Shominil Chowdhury, who's our manager of solutions and services at Kovair Software, and he brings quite a bit of experience as well with Kovair, over 14 years of experience as well. So let's jump right in. As we know, every technology that gets deployed typically has a maturity model from zero maturity, and in this case, it's no automation, to level 5, which is our dream goal of full automation with self-driving vehicles. No steering wheel, no brakes, no nothing, it's all automated. That's the end goal. Now, you could argue that perhaps some companies have achieved level 4, a high degree of automation, you know, with Tesla and Google with their Waymo division. However, to achieve level 5 with complete automation, we believe standards, metrics with process methods and tools need to occur with complete dashboards, complete feedback controls, with complete maturity of the system. And sometimes, you know, we'll see in all of these process maturity models, you know, not just for self-driving vehicles, but even in other industries, sometimes companies will start out fine and achieve great success, like in the avionics industry with fly-by-wire and autopilot functions. But then, as we've seen in the news lately with the Boeing 737 MAX and their automation systems, sometimes systems testing is not done or process compliance is circumvented. And as we've seen in the news, failures can be catastrophic. So as we progress to level 5, full automation, standards, metrics, process methods, and tools are needed with complete project lifecycle management, and they need to continuously be updated. It's not just a one-stop, one thing done once, you know, like we did with ISO 9001. We all have done that, where we comply and then we go back to the old world. Well, it shouldn't happen here. So we're seeing a lot of progress. 5G, edge computing. We're going to see newer technologies like artificial intelligence, LiDAR, which are, you know, basically laser beams, laser radar on a chip, as well as progress in process methods and tools with platforms and reference solutions that we will see in this demo. What are the innovations that are expected beyond autonomous driving? Well, we're going to see infotainment, we're going to see fleet management, we're going to see newer vehicle to anything communications that will lead to newer services like telematics, like smart everything, smart city deployments with edge computing, with newer supply chain aspects, Your car will actually tell the dealer or the the workshop to basically order a part as your part starts to fail. So before the part actually fails, it's already being ordered and you're already getting appointments set up to replace it. But to achieve this, as we discussed, we're going to need standards with process compliance. And one of the standards you will hear about is the term SPICE, Software Process Improvement and Capability Determination. And then in this context, we're going to see the term Automotive SPICE. Now, it turns out there's also medical SPICE and other verticals, so we're going to maybe even touch on that as we go along. We're going to see ISO standards as well. And these are technical standards in documents, ideally with software development tools, process, methods to ensure adherence. Now, fortunately, here at Kovair, we have integrated all of this with Application Lifecycle Management, with DevOps for development in the cloud, with its award-winning Omnibus that allows for inter-tool consistencies, with dashboards, with workflow process compliance solutions, and with integrations to 100+ applications and tools. We believe we can ensure process compliance along with inter-tool consistency between the different applications. Well, what is resulting from this? You get complete traceability, better visibility, and better process compliance indicators as you go through the process. Now, if you sprinkle in project lifecycle management, we get version control. We get hardware components which fail and get replaced. Well, we get the complete supply chain management aspects all integrated, which is needed for adherence to Automotive SPICE and ISO 26262, which we'll talk about as well. So these are some of the standards. And it's not just the standard when the car is new. It's throughout the entire life cycle of that car as it progresses. So I mentioned Kovair, and I mentioned our German partner, Deutsche Mittelstand. And what we'll see is, as we progress, what Kovair and Deutsche Mittelstand can provide is pre-configured compliance to the Automotive SPICE and ISO 26262 standards. We can see the solution within the demo, ensuring the benefits of inter-tool consistency, process compliance indicators, and complete end-to-end project lifecycle management. In this demo that we're about to see soon, we're going to see the complete documents that are pertaining to ISO 26262 and Automotive SPICE being tracked, being document reviewed, all of the dashboards, all of the metrics adhered to, being visualized throughout the process. Now, it's not just a bunch of documents being tracked, because guess what? We can use document management systems. There's actually a process engine behind all of this with a complete workflow model. So it's not only adherence to having the document, it's also adherence to the process that ensures that the right people, role-based people, have signed off on it, and that there's actual adherence to the process. So with that, I will hand off to Thomas and Shomanil from here, and let's see if we can see the demo.
Okay, well, please hand over the controls to Sumanil for the screen. Actually, this is Thomas speaking here right now. And while Sumanil will be the one showing that on the Kovair side, I will guide you through the Kovair solution that we've been providing. If you look into it, you will see on the left hand, just that you have an idea, a lot of menu items, and I will guide you through at least a surface glance view of what is in the template. In order to understand what is in, because there will be other people as well wanting to use that, there is something called template content, where you are guided even in Kovair into what is in there. So what's the industrial coverage? Then we have the naming conventions, and then we have the standards. If you scroll a bit more down, this is out of the Automotive SPICE. This is the typical process house that you have in SPICE. Just that you know it's in there. Then let's continue a bit, because we have branch specifics for sure. This is made for automotive, and there is one thing we will later on show you. It's called the entire automotive SPICE configuration mapping. I will guide you through that later. So in that template content, if you read through it, you see what's the content, you see the roles inside, you see the traceability concepts as they have been set up, and the mapping to the 26.26.2, and all those pictures you have directly out of the Automotive SPICE norm that is freely available in the internet. So if you scroll through that, it's just, there's a lot of items inside. And this template content describes here what is in there. You see there will be plans in this template, and all these plans have predefined content. So typical project management is to be done according to ISO 16326. For sure, it can be changed, but it will have as well a coverage of 80 to 90% to any other norm that is on project management. And this is already in with a lot of items. And what you see as well is you can do the agile approach as well. The Automotive SPICE is not prohibiting agile, and agile is not contradictory to SPICE or 26.26.2. And you will see as well something like suspect links that can be done. And we have already some pre-configured connectors as Kovair is addressing as well the omnibus. So you see there is a Word adapter installed, there's an Enterprise Architect adapter installed, and as well a Microsoft Project adapter. We're not going to show that here in this demo, but this is already in. So let me guide you through the pure, go to the config management and the Automotive SPICE configuration. The sheer quantity of what you have in Automotive SPICE is typically killing the most people when they start to go in there. You have a total of 122 mandatory base practices. You have seen the process house beforehand, and what you can see here right now is that for every base practice that is requested, for example, manage stakeholder requirements, you see anytime a change is received, it has to go to, it is handled where. So every base practice that is requested is described inside here and how it is handled in the template. Okay, you cannot do everything automated, because if you have to talk with a customer, for sure that is not handled in the template or from a tool, but every base practice is described. And if you switch over to the work products on the filters, because the SPICE as well contains a lot of work products, you see here right now, this is something I have to intervene here, is like Sumanil is sitting in Kolkata in India, and since yesterday they had a thunderstorm, the internet connection has some problems there. So if it's a bit slow, sometimes it's there. So what you can see here is there is another 111 records that are called work products. So every work product requested by the Automotive SPICE is listed here and how it is handled in this template. That doesn't mean everything is inside, but because for sure some things are talk with a customer, a communication record, for sure you will do that with email, with podcast, with webinars or whatever, but you have to do that things. but everything that you need in order to show how compliance can be achieved is described and how it is done in this template. And if you later on work through that template, you as well can see, and this is a lot of work here for all those items. If you go through it, scroll a bit down, Sumanil, you see for all the items, scroll further, it's just like that, it can be seen. It is described where do you find the respective work product, how do you do that? And the same is done from the SPICE side, is one thing. The same is done for the 2626 items, because they need to be there as well. And because SPICE is just one part of it. Yeah. So you see here as well, oops, you see as well that all the requirements that are stated in the norm in terms of organization-specific rules, for sure you don't do that. You have to do that in a quality management handbook. And this is not a part for sure of this template because it's a company handbook. Evidence of competence for sure will not be part of the template. But evidence of quality management, you can do that while following the processes that you do there. And you can see here as well, if you scroll down, it's 134 records that are there, all items. So everything that is to be done, how it is done, whatever is requested by the norm, is described how it is done in this template. So you do not need to think a lot. You just say, okay, I need that. Let's see where it is. Thank you. Let's do it. So it's just leaves you nearly open to the point that you just need to execute. And for sure, there are, yes, similarities and identicals between SPICE and 2626.2. So there is even a merge concept where you internally in your company have your company configuration items where you then can assign them to and keep overview what artifact is where, because 134 here, 111 there, 250, everybody goes crazy. It's not a big deal because it's all kind of pre-configured. It's just once walk through it and that's it. So after having shown you that all those items from the configuration management have been identified, let's go into the planning parts, for example. What you can see as part of Kovair, yeah, go to the plan, go to the plans, go to the plans. Project planner, whatever plan you have. So wait before you click somewhere. Okay, but you can see that already on the left hand, there is a lot of plans inside. You will need to have all these plans, and all these plans are pre-configured with content. Some with large content, like the project management plan, some with small content. So there is a framework where you just need to go in, adapt to your needs, and that's it mainly, and then keep it running. You see, the project management plan is the largest with 272 records inside. And it follows as well as a standard structure as stated before, 16.3.26. And every item that is to be a part of a project plan for sure is handled in that norm. And this is the reason why we took it. If you don't need it, you just cut it out or you mark it as deferred or not needed or whatever your workflow item is. Here is everything in, you won't forget. And that's the most important thing, because even after having been a project manager since about nearly 40 years, I always find that I forget something if I didn't write it down. Here's everything written down. So you can see there's a project management plan. There is a project management handbook that you need as well. Should be, so when you switch to the other tab, you have that already opened, I guess. No, it's already there on the top beneath. Doesn't matter. Okay. So there is a handbook in advance as well inside. So what you can see is that as well here a full action item is inside. What is to be done? Where's an overview? This handbook has 165 artifacts inside, and everything is kind of pre-described. So as you have seen before, and there are a lot of plans, just to manually open of what you have already opened in advance from the plans, if you have other ones. So you see configuration management plan. Not a lot what you can have there, but there is a lot of items in. So what you can see, there are all the items that you typically need. It will be not 100% solution because it's a template, and for sure we have to adapt that to your company specific needs. So here you find all items, all plans, all basics you need to follow. And then as well, before going into further details, this is relieving you of an extreme high amount of work. You just need to go through it. You have it under config and version control. And everything that should be in is typically inside. Okay, so other plans, whatever you have opened in advance, just show that it's like problem management plan, how you handle problems. Safety management plan, you need that for the 26 too. So all these plannings you will find there, and you see here as well 166 records. So it's a lot of predefined content for you, and this eases the work like mad because you just have a basic structure. For sure, you can take that all out and fill it with your content if you have something. For the most people, what I've experienced is they don't have it, even though they have done a lot, but it's typically somewhat distributed. Here it is all in a single source of truth. And if you just click onto the company configuration, going back, kind of back, it's not a back because config items, what you can see here as a special is that, yeah, once again, oops. The company configuration items is an entity, that's the wording that Kovair has, where it contains, we need to wait for the thunderstorm in India to get that off. No, it's there. So if you click onto the system requirement specification, just as an example, we open one item where there is something in. The problem you have is the SPICE has a specific wording, the 26.26.2 has a specific wording, and your company will have a different wording as well. So, for example, the system requirement specification will have several items, and you see that's the title, that's the description, and then you see the SPICE mapping. If you click onto that area, you will see that typically in the so-called system requirement specification, there will be various artifacts of the SPICE mapped into. So later on, you know, I will find all these artifacts inside. And here for sure, system requirement will contain the system requirements. It will have a change control because this is based from Kovair from the tool side. You will have a special field for verification criteria. The traceability record will come here as well directly. Analysis reports you can do in here, you do not need to, but typically as well, the system requirement specification will contain the interface requirement specification. And for sure, you can adapt that to your specific needs. The same for the 26-26-2 mapping. There's just one item in there currently. What you can see, this is specification of requirements for production, operation, service, and commissioning. And for sure, we did not map that all. It's just here to show you that you can keep your area of your company structure can be kept, even though you integrate all the SPICE and the 26-26-2. So you have here a clear view for all configuration items, and as actually mentioned beforehand, you have more sensors, you have more software, and the pure quantity of work product artifacts that needs to be done will be heavily exceeding. And here is at least for the process side that you can keep your process data under control, because without a process, you don't need a tool. If you have a process, you need the tool. And there, here, Kovair is excellent to go in. So go to the next. I guess from our side, I'm off here right now, and I will hand over to Sumanil for some specials to show.
Okay, so thanks, Thomas, for showing the plans and guiding us through the company configuration and all those stuff. So now what I'll do is I'll start my demo by showing you the actual project plan from the task scheduler. So Kovair has an inbuilt task scheduler by means of which you can do a complete planning of your tasks, and based on the task that you define, you have a comparative study of the planning at the design state, and later on as you assign users and they do the tasks, they fill up their timesheets, so you get the information about the actual completion, the actual start, and the percentage completion. So a plan and an actuals is shown from a single visibility of this plan. So as a project manager, it's very useful for you to have such a plan where uh, things are all in your one single page. Also, you get a Gantt chart right from the scheduler itself. So as you define the plan, it automatically shows you the Gantt chart readily with all the tasks that you have defined. Now, whenever you are defining the plan, you are at the design state. Currently, as you can see, it's in the published state. So basically what we do is, as a project manager, he does the planning for a certain period of time, and then once he publish, the task gets actually assigned to the respective users. But it's not necessary that you have to assign users to all the tasks that you have planned. So Kovair gives you a selective assignments of once you assign the users and then you update the plan, only those tasks will be assigned to the corresponding users. Additionally, you can define milestones, to define phases. You have the option to define critical paths. You have the option to export it to an Excel as well. So basically, a complete project plan is inbuilt that helps you to manage tasks as well as timesheet. So now, once we have discussed about the project plan, now let me show you how we have incorporated the entire VModel in this particular template. So on the left, as you can see, there are several groups that are being assigned over here. And here you can see the requirements management consisting of customer, system, hardware, software requirements. Similarly, we have the architecture management group consisting of system architecture, hardware, and software, followed with the design, and then the test management, defects, and further down we have release. On top we have project risks and device hazards. So both the verification phase as well as the validation, if you remember, Akshay was showing you the diagram, so you can get the entire glimpse of it. And let me give you the glimpse right from the customer requirements by showing you a traceability view. So here you can see we have this traceability view showing the customer requirement, and if we drill down, you will find the set of system requirements linked to it. Further down, if we drill, we get the system architecture. Further drilling down, the system architecture elements are linked with each of the hardware requirements on one hand, with the software requirements on the other, as well as further from the hardware requirements to the hardware architecture, and further the hardware architecture is linked to the hardware detailed designs. Similarly, the same is for the software requirements as well, from the software to software architecture and further to the software detailed designs. So a complete visibility of the verification side of that stuff. Now, if we look into another aspect from the system requirements level, which is just a level below the customer requirements, I can show you the validation part, the validation part of this V model, where you can see the system requirements is how it's linked to tests. So we have the system requirements, it's showing you the system tests. Further, the system test is linked to the different steps. You have the test runs, and further drilling down, due to the failure of the test run, you can see the defect. So this traceability view gives you the complete visibility to either to trace back or to trace forward with respect to an artifact at any level. Now
Just
let
for a
us
short interruption, there is any kind of these views can be adapted to your company needs. Kovair has no fixed built-in trace view. You can set any kind of trace view as you need it for your specific purposes. Go ahead, Simon.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thanks. So now as we seen the traceability with artifact linking one to another, let's get into the details of the system requirement for it. So as you can see, it's a standard view that gives you what are the system requirements that we have and what are the status of each, the SLs assigned to each as they gets linked to hazards, and who has submitted it along with the submitter. Additionally, if you want, you can set up a different views if you are dealing with ASL only. So you can have a group by view on ASL, and that gives you a compact view where requirements are grouped with respect to ASL. Now let's
Just
say,
shortly
yeah, please
here,
go.
for those who are not that familiar what ASL means, it means Automotive Safety Integrity Level. And there are a total of 5 levels. QM is the lowest and ASL D is the highest. And it's consisting out of 3 components. That is severity, controllability, and
Exposure.
what's that and exposure, the frequency, how often it's happened. So if all is very dangerous or very difficult to control and all that stuff, you get an ASL-D. And for sure, if you have a fully autonomous car, you will have an ASL-D. And that means, I don't know, recent what I saw is about 20 cameras, 20 radars, 10 lidars, some ultrasounds because of redundancies and for sure and other things. So this is ASIL ABCD. QM is the lowest. ABCD means A is easy. D means if it fails, you are either dead or heavily damaged, and it happens very often, and people need to take action. That's the reason for having the system requirements as well grouped into groups of severity of that specific requirement, derived from the hazard and risk analysis.
Okay, so going into a different view, if at the requirement level, if I want to view what are the requirements that are being covered with tests, so that we can also have views where you can get what are the requirements that are being covered along with the test, and these are the number of tests that are covering each of these requirements. Now, apart from the views, you can also have filters with respect to the different attributes of the entity that you are looking at. Now, additionally, you have different custom forms for the different entities to organize your attributes. Like let me give you an instance of a system requirement, and it's pretty universal, and it's uniform across all the entities. So let me show you for one. So here you can see it's a system requirement, and it's having a system architecture linked to it. You can see this is an impact view which shows this particular system requirement was being modified, and that has triggered a flag on the system architecture to take care of it, to incorporate the changes that has been occurred to do the change in the system requirement. So Kovair has automated flags that can be triggered for raising and notifying people working on that. As well as you have hardware requirements, software requirements, the system tests with each of the counts showing at each levels. Now, from here only, if you want to create a system architecture or you want to link it to, so you have the options to do that. Additionally, from the list page itself, if you want to see what are the different changes that this particular system requirement has gone through, you have the option of change history. That gives you a complete audit trail of the different changes that the attributes of the system requirement has been occurring, who has done it, on what particular date it has been done, what's the earlier value, what's the next current value, and all details. So a complete change history can be seen from the list. So several options are there with respect to each, and you can use those, and these are common functionalities across all different entities. Now let us move on to the architecture, and here you can see that Kovair has, as we open up this particular record, I can show you that Kovair has a rich text field that allows you to provide the images from external elements if you are defining the system architecture and incorporate that as an image, or you also have an image image editor, I would say. Excuse me, it's a bit slower. So here you can see this particular image, and if you edit this, it brings up a rich text control that allows you to define a diagram, an architectural diagram right in this description field. So Kovair has that image editor over here. So it's taking time and loading in. So here is the rich text editor, and this is the control to insert the diagram. Additionally, you have spell checkers and all of the stuff available for each of these RTF fields. Now moving on, from the architecture, you also have this design elements, but I'm not going into the design. Let me jump into the test management part. So as you have defined the requirements, the architectural elements, the design, now you have to test those. So you have tests right from the software unit test right up to the system tests. And each one is linked to the corresponding architecture, requirements, and design elements. For example, if you're looking at system test, it is it's linked to I would say the system requirements. And you can see from here itself, it shows you the status of the last execution that this test case has gone through. So if I go into the details of the test case, you can see this particular test case it's having, so this particular test case is having test steps. So here you can see it's having the test steps. Further, it's having the test runs, and also it shows you which is the system requirement that it's linked to. And from the list itself, if you want, you can directly execute this test case and track the execution result with respect to this test case. Now, based on the failure of the execution of this test case, Kovair also lets you to track defects And you do not have to take the pain of creating defects every time the test run fails. So Kovair has a policy engine by means of which it can create defects with respect to the test run whenever it's failed. So here is such a defect, as you can see, and Thomas was mentioning about a defect workflow. I was mentioning about a workflow, and here is an example of such a workflow that's been configured at the defect level. So here you can see each of these yellow boxes. These are actually the activities that different owners would be performing and would take this defect right from the submission to completion. So
Here,
unlike
just a pre-configured, it's just as an example to show you that all those things can be fully based with processes in the backend, beside that the tool has already possibilities and you have policies you can on top of that put the process into, and Sumanil has just done one example here. So whatever you have in your mind in your company right now on processes, on items and how to handle them, the quality people will love it and the others as well. You can right now here go through a full process on any artifact that you put into the system, and this can be done according to your rules as you have them in the company. So Sumanil did that just to show you one example here. Sumanil, go ahead.
Okay, so as an end users, you are seeing the process, which is actually a task-based workflow, unlike most of the tools that shows you the state-based workflow. So the advantage over here is at the same time, you can see what are the different people working on different tasks. They're entering the time. So from one hand, you can calculate the amount of time that's being getting invested in each of these phases of the defect resolution. On the other hand, it's taking you through the steps and the status of the defect phases. So this
And one
is,
advantage of this, if I may add, Shomanil, is that
yeah,
because it's task-based, it can be concurrent. It doesn't have to be sequential. Like not everyone is doing the same thing at the same time. You could have multiple of these for different departments, and they
absolutely.
can all be running concurrently.
Absolutely. So what you can have is you can have multiple people reviewing different groups, reviewing a particular phase, and then based on each of their feedbacks, you can move forward. You can converge to one and then move forward to the other. So this is an example of the process or the workflow that Kovair has built in. Now let me take you to two major areas of automotives in terms of risks and hazards. So Thomas was already talking about risks, and here, as you can see, with respect to each of the risks, you can mark it with respect to its likelihood and its severity. So based on that, you can have a group by views, which shows you what are the risks, what's the mitigation plan with respect to that risk, and you can even track the severity and the likelihood before mitigation as well as after mitigation. So such
Here as
facilities are
well,
available.
pre-configured, this list of project risks is a kind of standard project risk list. Risk management is very often overlooked, but if you do not attack the risk attacks you. So here is things to think about. And I know that every project manager knows the thing of availability of stuff and the correct project definition, like customers changing on a daily basis. Or we don't have our vendors supplying with the right materials and whatever there is. So these are standard risks, and if you know them in advance, you can already create a strategy and execute tasks based on those risks and keep that under control. So it's just like your kind of checklist you have in the flight, what you have here in the template. It contains everything, and every time you go to an area, you will find it is pre-filled with the typical standard checks, and for sure on the long-term run you will take your own things into that, but it is based in a way that you kind of from scratch can go in and you will cover nearly everything. Go ahead.
Thank you, Thomas. So once we have the risks, you can see the risk can be associated with risk triggering events, and you can capture all the details of risks. Now let me jump into hazards and risk analysis. That's what we call HARA, hazard and risk analysis. And let me go into the details of the hazards. So three important parameters that Thomas was talking about that regarding the ASIL configuration. So there is a defined matrix with respect to the controllability, the severity, and the exposure. You have the ASIL number, and an ASIL associated has to be associated with every hazard. So Kovair has this calculated fields based on which you can automatically assign an ASIL flag and an ASIL number by the system itself. You don't have to take care of the ASIL details for you. So here is the matrix that you can see, and based on any things that I change, it would take the ASIL flag automatically. And this number also comes with respect to each of these items are associated with a weightage. So Kovair lookups are just not text, it has a weightage associated to it, and every weightage gives the ASIL number with respect to the product of these three parameters with that each of these values are being selected. Now let's say I go into the connected system requirements, and you can see whatever system requirements being linked are also having the same missile. Now, if I link a particular system requirement from the list, we'll find automatically the system will assign the flag to this system requirement. So let's say I select the system requirement number 15, which has no SIL assigned to it. And if I refresh it, you will find there will be an SIL assigned to this particular system requirement. So let me refresh the screen, this page, and you can see the particular SIL has been assigned. So apart from the hazards and calculating the fields with respect to each of these parameters, the ASIL configuration can be done at the hazard level, and then when it gets linked to the system requirements and all the stuff, or any the system requirements, it gets automatically updated to the system requirement as well. So apart from that, you also have the change management. The configuration management has already been discussed by Thomas. Now, as the last item, I would like to...
One thing, Sumanil, one thing you forgot, this automatic distribution of the respective ASIL level to a system requirement is an example of what can be done. Maybe some of you do not like that, and other ones say, yes, I like that very much. Some people say, no, I don't want an automatic distribution. I want to do it by hand later on. And the rest says, no, I want to have that enforced, typically from the quality side. So there is not necessarily that you have to do it. However, if you have a hazard that is in there, the hazard itself gets an ASIL that is derived from the respective values as stated beforehand, and then you can decompose that ASIL to lower levels as it is described in the norm already on the system level, or you do that later. So there is something, this distribution, what you need to decide how you want to have that, and then we have to adapt according. It's just like configure Kovair in the backend according to your company needs of that.
Thank you, Thomas. So as the last item, what I would do is I will take you to a dashboard showing you different glimpses of the reports based on the different artifacts that we have captured in this template. So the top one, as you can see, is the system requirements distribution by different SLs. And these are just not static images, So if I click on a particular SL sector, it shows me those requirements that are currently belonging to that SL. So now you can see a distribution chart with respect to the distribution of system requirements by type. On the left, you can see a distribution of status of different defects. If I want to see, show me which are the ones currently in progress, I can drill down and get to see those list of items. So it's not just static that you are seeing from here and you have to drill down from somewhere else to see it. Further, you can see what are the different system requirements covered by tests. So in the list page, you show a group by view. Here you can see a graphical chart. Next, you can also see the different change requests by its status. You can see the distribution of hazards of severity by controllability, and you can also see the different risks by its severity. And finally, also, as you have been tracking risks, so here is a risk matrix that you can track with respect to the different likelihoods and with respect to the different severity. So these are just some examples. You can create much more reports and graphs, graphical reports out from the template. So that was all from my side.
Okay,
Over to you,
Sumanil,
Ashwin.
thank you very much. Just for you who are listening to what we have, and I've seen everybody is still listening very carefully. This template contains a total of about 3,000 items, something like that, pre-configured content that you can use in your company. Based on that, you need to know, even though I'm here right now as CEO of whatever company, I'm constantly at customer sites. I work as project manager, as quality, as task force manager in those automotive, aerospace, and medical fields. So what you have inside is based on experience, like what's the needs we should have and we should follow. And for sure, it can be extended and it can be cut down to whatever suits that area. However, what you have inside is like, please, you can take this template kind of, we need to get your users into the system, and you can start working on that. And as Akshay has shown before, we can integrate your whole tool chain into that. And you have a consistent data model and a consistent process across all your tool chain within of the development of products that may put the life of people at risk, and you don't want to be liable. So what you can do is you can ensure that you do it to the best of the technical standards as known of today. So I would like to, from my side as well, say I've done it. We omitted in the beginning to say that at any time you could have taken questions into that. We right now, I will hand over to Akshay and then see if we have other questions, and then we put them into and we'll answer whatever you have.
Great, Thomas and Shomanil. Can you see my slides? Oh, I have to click on show my screen.
Not yet. Okay, here we are.
So just to recap, thanks, Shomanil and Thomas. You know, we've discussed about the siloed tools leading to data inconsistency. Hopefully we showed that, you know, we're not only pre-configured for process compliance, we have a lot of the metrics and a lot of the dashboards to show adherence. So we talked about the model behind this whole system. It's not just a bunch of documents, although it looks like that initially. There's a process and a workflow engine behind it all. So now, as we talked about, you know, now what we can achieve is what's known as design thinking or holistic thinking, where people are not just siloed and looking at one inflexible tool or an inflexible platform or an inflexible process that's in a, you know, big diagram. We're actually enforcing that within the tools and the platforms itself. We're going from engineering silos to cross-functional teams. We're going from a siloed bunch of disparate tools to now integrated tools that are flexible, that are virtualized, cloud-based. We had a design philosophy originally where one size fits all, or one tool or one thing is used, like Microsoft Word, and everyone uses Word or PowerPoint for their designs and shares it. Well, now we have a complete agile multimodal delivery system where you can literally execute the test plans, as you saw, from within the tool and capture the defects. So we become truly operational, from leap of faith assumptions to analytics driven, and it's all intelligent and design and metric based. So now this is the last slide I have. We're going from, basically siloed solutions to now holistic thinking. So the next steps, if I were part of an automotive team doing self-driving vehicles, let's say I'm part of the CIO team or the CTO team, one thing I would recommend is look at your own tools, processes, and methods for compliance to these standards like ISO 26262 and Automotive SPICE and related standards. See what kind of tools you have. Are they truly used? Are they enforced? Do you have the complete dashboards? Do you have process compliance metrics? If not, look at solutions from Kovair and from Deutsche Mittelstand. Retrain with cross-functional teams. Look at concurrent multimodal solutions as well. It's not all legacy lifecycle management from application lifecycle management of the past, the classic waterfall development. It's now agile with DevOps, with cloud-based, with data centers in mind, with edge computing in mind, within perhaps the vehicle or within maybe nano data centers at the edge with 5G, or within maybe personal compute, within smartphones. So we're going to see newer edge computing solutions come out. And with this, look at also project lifecycle management, because it's not just a siloed linear development, but it's the entire inventory, supply chain, parts, hardware, software, everything end to end. And then as you do this, hopefully you can innovate while you're adhering to the process. And hopefully you can leapfrog with newer innovations. So with that, I will thank everyone for this great presentation and see if there's some questions. But before we jump, I know there's about 3-4 minutes left. I'll ask one question for you, Thomas. You mentioned the word liability. Is there legal requirements for having process adherence in the automotive space?
In the SPICE note, you have a legal requirement with personal responsibility for the safety engineer out of the 26262 that is a binding legal norm. The SPICE is something what the OEMs want to have, and for sure it doesn't make any sense to do 26262 without SPICE. However, the legal liability going up to the point that I don't have that in writing, just got told that a safety engineer got verdicted by a German judge for not suing his own management because he omitted to say to the state attorney that his management is ignoring. So it's really getting the pace very high, because the safety engineer is personally liable, as far as I know, 20 years after that. And it comes to a point that if one day before start of production, the safety engineer finds a hardware error that is putting a risk into the area, the safety engineer has the right and the obligation to stop the full production. So we are talking here about really legal implying things similar what you have in the aerospace, because you as a safety engineer who is responsible and to get his people to execute the process and to deliver the work products, personal liability for 20 years or 30 years after first day of production. If they find out that you messed it up, I don't want to be in that shoes. I better have the evidence I have done it.
So with that in mind, maybe a final question. We have also attendees in the medical space. How easy would this be to maybe create a medical SPICE or an avionics version of this?
The avionics will be a bit more work, because avionics is, as you know by yourself, it has a lot more artifacts to put into. From the medical side, the basic VModel will not change. the basic plannings you have will not change. What will change is compliance to either 13485 and 6061 and 14971. And it is already prepared, but not shown in that template. It's already predefined because the basic development cycles are the same. The artifacts are different, but this is something that is implemented easily. So from the medical side, if you want to join, go ahead, you can do that. And I tell you straight, you will have 95%, 95% covered of what you need to have in the medical part.
Great. With that, I'd like to end this discussion and thank everyone, thank all the speakers and all the attendees. And for further information, please contact us at www.kovair.com or contact us at sales@kovair.com. And I'd like to thank everyone again. Have a great day.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Akshay,